My clock says it's 2 minutes after 5, so let's call this meeting to order. Let the record show it is Monday, September the 28th, and this is the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. Madam Clerk, if I can get you to call the roll, please.
Gary Paytow.
Here.
Samuel Hall.
Here.
Jeffrey Jones.
Here.
Francis Pawlowski.
Here.
And Art Graham.
I'm here. Okay, we got several minutes to approve. Let's approve the special CRA meeting held July the 15th. Any questions, concerns, or changes to those minutes?
Yes. If you look at the headings on page 2.
Oh, sorry, that's Jeff.
If you look at the headings on page 2, they don't match the text. I think they got taken from something else, or
I think you're Jeff, I think you're on the following meeting minutes. I think we're talking about the special meeting minutes at this time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, July 15th.
Some of my pages got mixed up.
I would just like to ask if it's policy to add more detail to the last one where it talked about some other things we talked about, like I mentioned workshop, upcoming meetings. Jeff mentioned Spring Hill Suites, and then Gary talked about the procedures and scheduling. Do we have to put more detail in, or are the summaries of those just fine? I just don't know the exact rules on summarizing discussions.
Through the chair, the summary should be fine, given that we both have audio and video YouTube backup for all of our meetings.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
No, that's fine. It's a good question.
Yeah, minutes are more just like the highlights.
Yeah, they're summary minutes.
Gary, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I have one item. At the end of the first page of those minutes, this is the special meetings, July 15th. Bill was quoting you as saying the resolution amends the fiscal year 2019-2020 downtown capital improvements budget for the South End Community Redevelopment District. Is that meant to be downtown Community Redevelopment District? To me, I don't know why the capital improvements budget would change the South End Community Redevelopment budget.
That was, through the chair, that was a mistake on my half. It should read correctly as improvements budget for the Downtown Community Redevelopment District, and I can make that change.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Were your pages just messed up?
Yeah, I was, somehow I got the first page of that and the second page of the next meeting, so. I'm fine.
No worries.
I'm fine with the 15th one.
Okay, any other questions or concerns on the meeting of the 15th? I'll entertain a motion.
If there are no further questions, I'd like to offer a motion that we accept the minutes from July 15th special meeting.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? By your action, you've approved the minutes of the July 15th. Next is the regular CRA meeting of July the 27th. Any questions, concerns of that meeting?
Here's where I have the concern. On page 2, the headings don't match the text. The first text appears to be about the pier entrance project design, and it's entitled Veterans Memorial Resolution. And the second one is the downtown delivery parking, and it's under the heading of budget review. And then the last one, I guess maybe the second one is supposed to go on the last one. It wasn't clear.
I think you're right.
Hold on, we can figure it out. Hold on. Chandra, are you online?
Yes, I'm trying to figure it out. Probably need.
If the text is correct, then item A should be pier entryway design. Item B should be downtown delivery parking. And I haven't got to item C yet.
I'm looking through it.
What's the agenda for what? Agenda for July 27th.
I believe the whole set of minutes needs to be re-looked at and represented before the board. It looks like it's supposed to be the titles Veterans Memorial Relocation, and that was a carryover from the previous minutes that were
We're
the
gonna need to look
template.
at it because that means that the headers are right, but the text is wrong. The headers are correct by looking at the agenda, but I don't know where she got the text from, so we need to hold off on that. We'll do it for the next meeting.
We'll defer those minutes.
Yes, sir.
We'll come back to that next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Let's move on to the special CRA meeting, August the 12th. Any questions or concerns of those minutes?
That was the training session.
I don't see anybody waving at me, so I entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the minutes for the workshop meeting on August 12th, 2020.
Second motion.
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes of the special CRA workshop on August the 12th. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? By action, you approve those minutes. Okay, Downtown Cape. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing well. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yep, doing well. We're Friday, I'll be honest with you, when the governor went to phase 3, a lot of us were kind of scratching our heads because we really didn't see it coming. Luckily for us, we already had extra people on duty. Downtown Cape was full. We had been seeing lines starting back at a lot of the establishments downtown. We're definitely seeing those now. A lot of the establishments down there have contacted Sergeant Sharp to go back to hiring some of the off-duty officers. So kind of went off without a hitch. There was a lot of people out. Me personally, I was at the town center on Saturday night for dinner, and it was packed. If we hadn't had reservations, we wouldn't have got in. So I think slowly and surely everything's coming back. As far as with the downtown area, we had no major concerns. We have had a couple of things over the past few weeks, but nothing in the CRA downtown.
Mark, are we still closing everything at 9? Excuse me. Are we still closing everything at midnight?
I believe so, yeah.
And that's when our city council will make that change, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the main thing that went out was the numbers, the percentages.
Francis?
I just had a curious question in regards to the bars that got their, you can do hot pocket type food to open. Are we pulling that back now, or since they're now open full time, are we started monitoring their actual kitchens and what have you?
I'll be honest, it just happened on Friday night. A lot of them didn't even go into effect until Saturday. I haven't talked with the fire marshal. I was going to get with him today. I wasn't able to get with him. I don't think he was here. I didn't see him. I had a prior meeting I was trying to get with him. As far, I can't really answer that. I do know that we had talked prior, and once they got this other license that they got, that would remain them in effect. As far as with the regulating and that type of stuff, that's all done through the state.
Right. I was just curious if we're going to be able to regulate them as, we're not gonna have to relabel them from being bars and following those rules versus restaurants now that they have that ability to sell food. I was just curious.
No, we talked about that when the first couple did it, when Mangoes and a couple of the other ones did it. We did speak about that. I know the chief was involved with that conversation as well. I don't think so, but I can't answer for sure right now.
I know it's soon. I was just curious. Thank you.
I can tell you for one establishment, the Ritz was selling hot dogs and chili dogs. They're just going to keep selling them until their stock runs out, and then they're going to go back to bar. That's the only one I know about.
Any other questions for Mark or any concerns?
I do have one more thing. Myself and Jason, we met with the city attorney and with Bill a week or 10 days ago regarding the parking for the deliveries and that type stuff. So we do have some headway there, and I believe that'll be going to the council. Bill can brief you on that, but our conversation went really well. We had nothing really came out that was earth-shattering of it.
Right. I guess I do have one more question follow-up in regards to the funding for your the enhanced security cameras. Did you guys say you would have those in place by the end of October, and is that still the case?
Yeah, to my knowledge, yes. Yeah, that's still the case.
Okay.
Bill,
Yes.
since you teed that up, where are we with the parking regulations going before council?
I need to get back with at least one of the council people, because in the last discussion we had with them, she indicated that she thought we ought to put permanent markings in the streets where they could park. And that's really that's not going to work, because right now where they park, they're not supposed to be parking and they're a traffic hazard. We can't delineate parking spaces in the middle of a right of way. We're just telling them areas where they cannot definitely park. So that doesn't follow suit. That means that we ought to put, blue or yellow or whatever color boxes within the travel lanes to confuse the regular motoring public. So I just need to get that back to the council people, so that doesn't become a discussion on the adoption of the ordinance. But we're going forward with the city attorney's drafting the ordinance, or we had an initial draft to review, and we had some comments for him, and I just haven't gotten back with him on the subsequent draft. But we'll go to council fairly soon. I can't tell you exactly when yet.
Any questions of Bill about the parking regulations or Mark about downtown Cape? Okay. Old business.
No, sir.
Bill, I got a question.
Oh, who said that?
Bill,
Yes, sir.
I got a question for you. Can you give us a brief update on where things are in downtown?
Yes, sir. This is concerning the projects. The Buckets project, I spoke with them last week. They are still shopping for architects. They've gotten preliminary designs from several different groups. And just to confirm, they still are looking at the same basic massing and layout as was the building they knocked down. It got too far into rehab and it wasn't worth it. So it's more cost effective for them to build from scratch. So they told me they're still 2 to 3 months out before plans would come into us. And that would be
defined as multi-use hotel /
restaurant / office / retail.
Okay, so multi-use. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So again, they said it'd be 2 or 3 months till plans come in. That will go through development plan approval, followed by building permit. Dolphin Depot, that project is still on hold. I spoke with Scott Gay last week. The development plan and zoning are still in place. Everybody got a little bit of a hall pass during this COVID. It kind of extended their time frame for countdown on permit expirations. They were waiting before on the construction costs. That's still an issue with them. But now, more importantly, as we approach the end of the year, they want to see how Margaritaville does once they open, because if you'll remember, part of the Dolphin Depot project was a boutique hotel. I think it was 54, 57 rooms. So they kind of want to see how the market reacts to a bigger hotel to see if they want to pull the plug or maybe go back to the drawing board on that. Element Hotel is moving along. They still hope to be finished by the end of the year, with one caveat. A lot of their furniture was ordered from China, and there are supply chain issues with anything coming from China. I don't know if it's gotten better or worse, but if there's any delay, it's purely because they haven't gotten their furnishings in. They're working on doing the exterior building cladding right now. And the brown, the ugly brown that nobody wanted, is being covered up with nice beige panels. So that's Element. Campeche Bay and Zeta. The development plan application is currently in review. It's a 2-building project. Both buildings are partial 2-story. That means it's a full floor on the first floor and upstairs is a partial floor. And at least on the corner building, that is designated to be a restaurant, and it'll have some upstairs restaurant area and some outdoor seating out towards the street, towards First Street. And the building that was where Campeche is now would be, right now it's listed as mercantile on their plans, but that could change depending on the market. It could be another restaurant. It could be any number of retail establishments, but that has a second floor element as well. It's just not part of the outdoor seating for the restaurant. And it's an open corridor. If you can think about it, the gentleman that bought the properties is Mark Angelo. He just renovated Costa Verde Plaza down in the south end, and you can think Casa Maria's courtyard. The 2 buildings will have an open sidewalk that connects between First Street and the back parking lot. So you'll be able to walk through, and when you get to the middle of that space, it'll flare out to an opening, not the size of Casa Maria's, but something like that, like an inside courtyard. So it's a nice looking project. The elevations look very nice. I'll try to circulate those to y'all. I didn't want to do it at first because he said they're preliminary, and he didn't want me to get them too far out to the public. And Bose, the last one down. Oh, wait. Nope, hold 2 more. Bose, they are slowly progressing. COVID hit them very hard. They shut down for at least, I think, a month during COVID. I saw a sound group over there the other day, so that means they're working on getting their interior sound system going. So they are still progressing. Have no idea about when they're going to be open. We have both the police has done some action for some homeless camping out in the back of Bose, and code enforcement has also gotten on them for overgrowth and weeds in the yard or on their property. So we're addressing that. And the last one is Margaritaville, and they're still progressing towards a year-end completion. Yes, sir. Mr. Jones.
Springfield or Spring Hill Suites?
Oh, I didn't put on Spring Hill. Okay, Spring Hill Suites, we knew from the press that the property did sell. I've tried to reach out to the contractor who holds the actual building permit, Alex Grace with Grace Construction. They're really busy on 2 other projects right now. He has not responded to me, but his name escapes me now. He's on our board of adjustment. He works with the Marriott Group, and they are still invested in that project. They would be the operators of the project. So it's still going forward. It's still an estimated 14, 16 months completion time once they get started. And their building permit is still active. So I'm still waiting to hear from Alex Grace. But as far as we know, that project's still on go. We're just waiting for them to get going. And the last one was the pier. They are back on construction and out over the water. And that should be about 14 months since they're back going again.
Thanks for
14
getting
more months for the pier?
Pardon? Art?
14 more months for the pier?
Yes, sir, because it was about an 18-month project, and they're only about 3 or 4 months into it. So, and they just now got started working again several
Well,
weeks
it looks
ago.
like they have all the pylons in almost.
Well, no, actually, what they have to do is if you go out and notice that construction site, you have the existing pier, and then on the north side, they're building a parallel temporary trestle. The first thing they need to do is go all the way out the full 1,300 feet of the project and clear the debris field, which is all the old concrete pilings that got taken out by the hurricane. Despite what the news and everybody said that those pilings were halfway down to St. Augustine, those pilings fell in place and stayed in place after the storm. So there's just a littered debris field offshore, which actually ought to be pretty good fishing, but I haven't seen many people working it yet. But they have to go out and pick up that debris field, and then they'll come back and start doing the construction out to the full, I think it's actually 1,280 feet, but we're saying roughly 1,300 feet. And the pier, I don't know if y'all know it, the pier, pretty much from where the fence is now to keep people from walking out further on the pier, at that point, it starts ramping up gradually to meet ADA requirements, and the end will be 8 feet higher than the old pier was. So it's going to get the new construction of the pier will be more out of the wave action. It's going to be a nice project once it's done. That's it.
Anybody have any questions? Jeff, go ahead.
Just want to say thank you for getting that Spring Hill Suites fence moved.
Yes, sir.
Francis?
Hey, Bill, I just want to make sure I just kind of recap this and make sure I understand it. So Buckets is going to be a multi-use with commercial. Dolphin Depot should be multi-use residential.
Residential hotel and one, I think it's about a 2,000 square foot commercial space on the first floor.
Okay, and they go through the permit process through you guys and then City Council. Do we ever get to see, make sure it follows the downtown plan?
Dolphin Depot?
Happen?
Dolphin Depot?
Mm-hmm.
No, ma'am, we did that several years ago.
I know we did, but like if they're going to update it and change it, that's going
Oh,
to come
well,
back.
yes, ma'am. Any substantive, they're allowed to make certain minor amendments, but any major amendment would have to go through the entire process again because
Right.
it's governed by an RD ordinance. Yes, ma'am.
And that includes the Cambeche Bay, which is going to be restaurant.
No, ma'am. That falls underneath the threshold that would require RD rezoning, so that does not necessarily need to go through the CRA for approval.
Can you redefine or remind me what RD rezoning means?
Redevelopment district. It's essentially the same as a planned unit development, but it reflects the fact that it's being done in the downtown redevelopment area. And the first stop for that is going through the redevelopment agency before it goes to the planning commission and city council.
So it kind of brings me to one of the things I want to talk about later on our workshop, but like how much of our downtown area has been rezoned out of the central business district?
To RD, do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I can quantify. I don't know off the top of my head. I can get you the quantification though.
Because I feel like I think a couple pieces or parcels that I thought were part of the plan actually are no longer considered. If you look at the land code and you look at where things are zoned and it's like bright orange, which is then defined by our purview. I think parts of that are no longer under our purview, and it's because it's been rezoned out of our district. And I'm just curious of how many pieces.
The only properties that have been rezoned are properties that exceeded 50,000 square feet and had to go through the RD zoning. The background mix of different zoning categories from 9th North to 13th South, which is the extent of the downtown, those zoning patterns are as they were when the CRA was created. Those haven't changed. The only changes have been the RD zonings for the big projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions of Bill? Gary?
Bill, just a little follow-up in reference to the construction fencing. The other day in the heavy winds, all that green screening that was on the fencing was blowing halfway into the street. Now it's been taken off. Or is anything going to be done to replace that screening so that there's a better appearance of the construction sites themselves?
Yeah, the screening will definitely go back up during active construction. It's kind of a dual-edged sword though. Like I'm going to give you the 221, the Buckets property as an example. Screening that vacant lot would be a hindrance to security of it. So right now the police can drive through and see all the way through to the boardwalk, and it's not an active construction site. So it actually makes sense now to have it open, and they put seed out there. They kept that prop fairly neatly. The other ones, we contacted all of the property owners that had the wind screening or the visual screening issue, and they all within a day or two got it picked up again. But I don't know if that answers all your question or not.
Yeah, basically it does. It's just unfortunate. I guess I can understand from a security standpoint that you want to leave those sites open, but then again, the appearance of them, particularly Pier 1, the Cantina Pier, I should say, that one's got a lot of debris laying around. It's not a good visual representation for our downtown.
Understood. We have had people trying to get into that building. They get through the security fencing, and if that's an issue, once it becomes an active job site again, they have their own security measures, and it's of their own interest for liability and other reasons to keep that maintained, and the screening will go back up. I wasn't aware. I haven't driven by there this week. Wasn't aware that theirs did not go back up, but I'll give them a call.
Yeah, all of them. It came down the other day because the screening was blowing quite a bit into the street. Still attached to the fence, but it was blowing.
And that could have been the building official. His initially said, "Hey, you need to get the hazard out of the road." So the quick fix for them, and it was still the northeast condition was still active when they were doing these cleanup work. So it may have been they were just waiting to get till the wind died down to get back out there. I'll follow up on that though.
Okay.
I'm still
Gary,
waiting.
do you have any update on fencing for the downtown area? Weren't you going to look in on that?
Well, I was. I mean, that was part of my reason. You had directed me in the last meeting to sit down with Public Works and with Bill and to go over that and some other things that I needed to do or discuss with Public Works. I haven't had a meeting set. I followed up with Bill on a couple of occasions and no meeting has been set up. I know that staff has had a meeting as it relates to the South District, but I was not invited to that meeting. And I'm sorry, Bill, but I haven't heard anything about a follow-up meeting. And you sent me several emails and said it's going to be set up, but I haven't gotten anything.
Okay, I will set up that meeting. I wasn't aware that the construction fencing was part of that meeting with Public Works. They really don't have a whole, they don't have a dog in that. I thought the meeting with Public Works was to review the South End projects list.
Well, it's
We
that
fixed
as well as I was directed to talk about the fencing, to see if there was something else that we could do, because it was brought up in one of our meetings by one of
Ken
the
Marsh.
residents of the city, to try to put something else up around those construction sites that would have a better appearance. And we were going to talk about some options as to what could be done. And at least that's what I was understanding, you know, I was directed to do with you and Public Works.
Okay, the fencing issue is not an issue with Public Works, number one. I'll get together with you, what's today, Monday? We can probably do it this week. I'll check Marty's schedule to review the final South End projects list that we have that we took to the city manager. We've just had that meeting. But the construction fencing, whether you or Mr. Marsh knows it, that's an element in the art master plan that Dick Height prepared. It has not been implemented yet. That's part of what, when we get this new program manager, I'll have additional staff resources to implement these projects. That's why it hadn't been implemented yet, between that and COVID. But so that element's in there. And if you look at the Dick Height art master plan, you will see some different treatments of construction fencing. So there are options in that plan to do that. So it's just a matter of coordinating with the individual property owners to do that, or the contractors.
Bill, I'm sorry, you mentioned a master plan. I'm not sure which master plan you're referring to.
Dick Height Partners submitted.
Oh, it's the height. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, they did a wayfinding sign, a bike parking plan, an art master plan, a street furnishings plan, a wayfinded signing plan, and the pier entryway plan. So the only one that's not delivered, hasn't been delivered to us, is the pier entryway plan, which Dick Height met with us recently. So we have that plan document, but the art master plan of all of them, I don't have that background. We're going to need outside help to implement that. And it's, we as a group are going to have to determine what level of funding we want. They have different levels of statemental pieces, some focal sculptural work. We'll need to set a budget for each one of those. They've got some locations for downtown murals. And again, one of the elements was also how to treat, you know, potential options for treating construction fencing. So how that will come back up is when we come to implement the art master plan. And Public Works, Cale Moore, Cale's here. Cale has been given the bike parking and street furnishings plan, because they're constructible items. They kind of go together. We're going to just get those out for bid. Cale is working on that now. The other master plan was the lighting master plan, and Beaches Energy Service is looking at that right now to see if they can do it internally or if it's something that we want to sub out to a contractor to build. And I keep reminding them they're going to ultimately be maintaining it. So if it's desire is for me to have Beaches Energy do it, but it's really not my call, it's their call.
Yeah, the only reason why I brought it up is because the last meeting we did a little straw poll and gave Gary the authority to speak for us as a group when it comes to the construction fencing.
Okay. And Gary, if you don't have a copy of that art map, I'll get you a copy of all the Dick Height plans. It's voluminous though, so I'll probably need to get you, if you come in with, well, I can't use your thumb. I'll get a thumb drive and just send it to you. It's nothing that you can download. Well, you might be able to. Maybe I can FTP site post them though. But I'll get you copies of those and you can see that treatment.
Okay, any other questions of Bill Mann of current statuses of projects in the downtown area? Okay, let's move on to new business. Mr. Mann.
Okay, first item, we've got two items for action tonight. The first item is resolution number 2020-04. This resolution amends the 2019-20 capital improvements budget for the South End Community Development District to appropriate an additional $8,672 in TIF funds for additional phase 1 design services under the Ocean Terrace Drainage Improvements Project contract with Hanson Engineering to add the design of drainage improvements on Jacksonville Drive between Grande and America to the overall project scope. And let me see, hold on. Information for the project design for Service 1 of Ocean K is provided in the memo from Cale Moore, which was in your package. Currently, the western extent of that proposed phase 1 drainage infrastructure stopped at Grande Boulevard because that's basically a drainage divide on the surface going west to east. Everything beyond Grande, as you drive towards America, slopes down towards Sanctuary. Everything east of Grande coming back towards South Beach Parkway drains to the east. So that was the natural limit for design of phase one. But now that we're contemplating putting, and I'm going off script, it's just easier to tell you. Now that we are incorporating the multi-purpose trail on the south side of the road, phase two of the design project would have provided the design work for that all the way down to America and Grande. It makes a lot of sense to advance it. This is not new money. This is just bringing money up from phase two that would be spent maybe next year and bringing it into phase one. So when we get the trail portion done, at least the entire trail segment from America Avenue to Jacksonville Drive will be done, as opposed to having it stop at Grande. Granted, the infrastructure will stop at Grande and go east, but everything else, we'll have the complete trail in place at one time. So that's the purpose of the memo. You've got a copy of the resolution. Cale Moore's on board if you got any questions from him, but staff recommends approval of resolution 2020-04.
Hey, Cale, welcome.
Thank you very much. Cale Moore, Public Works. Thank you.
And Cale will correct me for anything I said wrong.
No, it was all really good. We were looking at extending the sidewalk down, but as we got a little farther into it, we identified, along with the Hanson engineers, and Brian McKee is on by phone from Hanson if we have some more detailed questions for him. We identified some additional drainage concerns and some drainage improvements that we really needed to advance from the next phase of the project, so that we weren't just throwing down a walk, a sidewalk or a path, and then having to tear some of it up to put some additional infrastructure in. And I apologize. I know I came before you and asked for some additional funding to do this work, and I'm coming back and asking for more, and I apologize. I did not want to do that, but we just identified some additional work that we really felt like would be best to handle this way.
Well, you're going to have to deal with the wrath of Sam Hall.
Well, let me say this. If it is anything to do with averting flooding, and I am in agreement with it, and I'd rather do it in phase one than having to come back and do it later. So that's my take on it.
I agree with Sam wholeheartedly.
Yeah, well, thank you. Like I said, when we first did it, we were really focused, right or wrong, we were really focused primarily on that path and that walkway, and we really weren't focused closely on drainage impacts or concerns of the drainage that we were going to handle with the second phase until we really got the engineer really got into it.
Gary?
Cale, good evening. Wanted to just make sure I clearly understand what you're asking for here. I guess when I first read it, I thought you were talking about the extension of the multi-use path all the way down to America. But the way I'm hearing the discussion right now is you're really talking about doing some additional drainage work between America and Grande.
Well, that's primarily it. We were kind of hoping to slide just the additional concrete work of the path in with the initial change order. But as we got into it, we saw that we really need a good solid curb and gutter on the south side of that section of roadway, which would have been in the next phase, and also some additional catch basins or inlets and some piping to connect that. And we want to make sure we size that piping appropriately. So just a small amount of modeling to make sure that's done. And then there's some wet areas in there, and Dave McDonald had been wanting something for that. So we're looking at putting in some kind of under drain exfiltration drain piping along with that sidewalk. So a little bit more infrastructure we felt was necessary while we were constructing that section of that sidewalk.
So it's both the sidewalk and the drainage that you're proposing under this request.
I think in fairness, it is both. Had we not identified the drainage concerns, we might have tried to just kind of suck it up on the sidewalk and get that included, but it was a little bit heftier of a scope to make sure we covered all the drainage work.
The reason for my question was just that when we originally talked about the sidewalk, and at that time I had made a recommendation that we go ahead and extend it all the way to America. But the comment back then was we really need to do the design work for the second phase and know that we're not going to obstruct or impede something before proceeding with that. Now we're going ahead and proceeding with it. So I was just trying to get an understanding of what changed that allowed us to proceed where we couldn't do it before.
Well, I think what changed primarily was, you know, we went to council a couple times and came in front of you folks a couple times and kind of got a little bit sensitive of whether we could put the sidewalk or that path rather on the north side or the south side. So it got a lot of exposure. And every time we mentioned that this project area was only up to Grande, there was some concern and pushback. And then when that got approved and we got farther along, I started having these concerns that we were going to be seen as building a 8-foot path to nowhere, and it was going to dead end. So then we started really getting concerned about if we couldn't just easily extend that, say via change order with the construction contractor, and it took us, you know, a year and a half, 2 years to get to where we could construct the next phase, then we would have a missing section of sidewalk. So I just felt more and more pressure, I think, to make sure we had that last section of sidewalk as part of the first project, and that we didn't have to tear it up to put some new drainage infrastructure when we did the second phase.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-04.
I second the motion.
Is there a second? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any other questions? Madam Clerk, if I can get you to call the roll, please.
Gary Paytow,
Yes.
Samuel Hall,
Yes.
Jeffrey Jones,
Yes.
Francis Pawlowski,
Yes.
and Art Graham.
Yes, by your actions, you've approved resolution 2020-04. Okay, item number B in the new business, Mr. Mann.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is the long-awaited approval of the CRA Program Manager job description. At the CRA's June 10th workshop, the chairman invited Jim Gilmore, partner with Gilmore, Hagan and Partners, also with Taylor Magia, to discuss the CRA's intent to create a job description for and to hire a redevelopment program manager to assist the administrator in the overall operation of the CRA. Mr. Gilmore's firm was subsequently retained by the agency to prepare the desired job description position, and it is now presented for approval. It's my intent, following agency approval of the attached job description, to include it with a new Public Works Department job description, unrelated, but it's the same process, to be approved by the City Council at their October 5th, 2020 meeting for inclusion in the city's pay plan. The new hire will be a City of Jacksonville Beach employee in the Planning and Development Department, reporting to the CRA Administrator, myself. Upon its inclusion into the city pay plan, the job description may be posted and advertised. It's envisioned that staff, human resources, CRA Administrator, will do the initial vetting of the applications received. A short list will be compiled, a selection committee will be established, and interviews will be conducted with the shortlisted candidates. Finalists will also be invited to a special CRA meeting so that the agency members will have the opportunity to meet and talk with them. It's anticipated that the job description could be filled sometime before January 31st, 2021. Staff recommends approval of the attached CRA program manager position. And one thing that was not listed in the description, if it goes forward as we propose, this may be overkill to y'all, but it will be pay grade 322 in the city's pay plan. And I will tell you that the minimum salary for grade 322 is $53,700. The midpoint is $70,400, and the maximum at that pay grade is $87,110. And as a department, I tried to align that fairly closely with our senior planner position. It's the same level of responsibility, but I have to keep a kind of equity in my department. So that's how we came up with that pay range. And based on that, staff recommends approval.
Bill, I got two quick questions for you before I go to Taylor. You said it's going to be posted internally. Is it posted internally for how long before it goes out?
No. I didn't say that at all. It will be advertised.
Okay.
It won't be. There's nobody internally to fill the position. Not that I know of. No, it will definitely. It'll go out. It will be. We'll put it on the FR. Taylor will probably speak to this too, but HR will actually be doing the work. It will go to the Florida Redevelopment Agency, probably be posted in APA, American Planning Association, Florida website, and they may go national with, I think they probably will go national with as well, but I'll let Taylor answer that. But there's no internal offering only at first. There's nobody qualified internally to do it.
And one other question, who's on the selection committee? How's that?
That's something that we need to discuss after we get the applications in. HR and myself can view it against what the qualifications that are listed in the application. We can do that, but we'll bring somebody else in. I would like to have the city manager involved, perhaps yourself, as to do the final selection. But we are going to have a meeting with the entire agency so you can at least see who the finalists are. That's our intent going forward right now, unless you tell me otherwise.
All right. Taylor, how are you today?
Hi, everyone. I'm well. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look over the job description yet, but when we were designing this, we did a lot of research, especially with Bill's help, on other similar positions throughout the state when it comes to CRAs. We thought that this is a good description to kind of encompass, not exactly an executive director, but somebody who would have a good amount of responsibility and can work with you directly, as well as with the city council and outside people like business owners and stakeholders. So we think that encompasses that well. And only to add to what Bill said, we were also thinking about posting this job description on the Economic Development Council website as well. And they work nationally.
All right, members, any questions of Taylor or Bill or myself? Okay, Sam?
Yes, when we entertained the approval of the budget for 2021, seems like we had a line item in there for a position like this around 62,000 range. I know you gave us a range, but it seems like 62,000 sticks in my mind. Is that correct?
Actually, Mr. Hall, I believe the amount for budgetary purposes was $77,000. That was before we assigned the grade, but it does fall within this pay range. So if anything, we feel we are adequately funded for something maybe in the low to mid range of the salary range. So it was contemplated, just not to exact dollar amount. We couldn't speculate on the exact dollar amount.
Okay.
Francis?
I have two things. When I was reading through it, it mentioned that obviously they would be the liaison with us as well as the city. But I didn't see anything, and maybe I just missed it, but I thought we had asked that this person would be responsible to give the city council regular updates and be available at all meetings. I did not see that in here. I know it said our other action items that would be relevant to their position. Is it something we should actually put on here as they need to be prepared to go to those meetings?
I don't feel it needs to be at that level of specificity, number one. Number two, it still may be myself or whoever would be the administrator for the city, administrator for the agency, to get the briefings from that person, maybe have that person attend, like Kale attends with the public works engineer for support, but that may be a function that I would continue on as I do right now.
And just to add, Bill, I think it's about the third bullet point down under essential job functions, prepares executive summaries and presentations for the city council related to CRA activities.
I just wasn't sure if that needed to say prepares and participate. I didn't know if the participates need to be part of that or not, which brings me to my second question, Bill. I see that is under Director of Planning Development. I'm assuming they will be reporting to you. Is that the hierarchy of that, or is there another person they report to, or are they kind of their own person? I'm kind of fuzzy on that hierarchy.
They are staff in the Planning and Development Department.
And you're head of the Planning Department.
Yes, ma'am. They would report directly to me.
Okay. The reason I was asking is I was trying to get it to where there was less on your plate, and they were getting some additional, things moving. So I just didn't know if that was going to be, I just want to make sure that's how I understood to be. It would be underneath.
Oh, I'm sorry. At least initially in the short term, I'm going to need to be constantly in that feedback loop anyway. If they get a little more independent and they can take a little more and do directly, I'd be happy to let them do that. But for now, they're going to be under my wing.
I get that. I just wanted to see that's why I want to make sure that was the right department they should be underneath. I didn't know if we should be under a different department, or if that was the department that normally these positions be underneath. Because,
makes
you know, because we have combined departments underneath one head. And if we subcategorize them out, they could technically be their own department in the future, is what you're saying, if it becomes bigger.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, they could be, the executive group of the CRA could be its own administrative arm, as it is in many cities.
Which is what we were kind of hoping for. Eventually, we get that there's a transition. So that way it was just, we were re-separating out the consolidation that had happened in the past. That's kind of what my brain.
Yeah, I understand, and this is not a diversion from that necessarily, because part of what we're looking for is somebody that's got the caliber that maybe they need to be on board for a few years to get the lay of the land, get our project base, get what the new directives from the agency are, but maybe at some point they could step up if we desire to have a full-time executive director. So that's kind of what we're looking for in the background as part of these interviews, to hope we can maybe groom somebody up to that position.
So then the CRA would have their own voice next to the department of, you know, the development department, next to all these different, when they talk to the city manager. So I was just kind of curious as to where that went. So that's really my answer. Thank you.
Anybody else? Gary?
Just following up on Francis's comments, I mean, I agree. I was under the impression that ultimately this program manager was really working for the CRA and not specifically associated with city and city staff. You know, in the job summary in that last sentence, I would think that it's appropriate to strike Director of Planning and Development and just say CRA Administrative Director, because that's who they ought to be reporting to, because that could conceivably change at some point in the future. It could be somebody else. And so I would think that that would be an appropriate change. Also, a little bit further up in that same paragraph, it says relating to CRA infrastructure construction. I think we ought to strike infrastructure because it's construction projects. It's not just infrastructure projects. It's all construction projects that the CRA is going to be involved in. When you go to page 2 of the job description, a small minor item in the bullet point that starts interacts with various city departments, including Parks and Recreation, Public Works, to ensure capital maintenance projects. Maybe it should say capital and maintenance projects, because I think it's both. It's both capital as well as maintenance things that this individual will be involved in as we move forward with the projects that we're contemplating. Also, I didn't see any bullet point that really discussed them providing capabilities along the lines of development and marketing to potential businesses for the downtown area. And I think that would be something that would be of value if somebody could really get out there and market the downtown area and its benefits, and to generate businesses coming into the downtown area. And then when you get into qualifications, I think we're missing a large categories here under qualifications. I don't think we need urban planning and business administration as a description. I think Bill brings the urban planning component to the table. So that's not really what we're looking for this individual. Public administration, yes. Economics, marketing, finance. I think we're looking for somebody that really has construction and design capabilities, more from a real estate architecture program management side than from economics, marketing, and finance. We need somebody who understands how to take a project from initiation all the way through to project completion. And I really think that tends to be somebody who has some good either real estate or architecture background. And, you know, does it really need to be a master's degree? If you have somebody that has a bachelor's degree, has 7 years worth of experience, working on design and construction projects as a project manager, I think that's of greater value than a master's degree. Sorry, but that's the experiences that I've had trying to hire a similar position in the past. It's a very difficult position to fill because it does require a lot of different qualifications. But I think you will tend to find those individuals a little bit more on the real estate and architecture side. Those are basically my comments.
I actually questioned the master's degree myself. Taylor, would you speak to that? My guess was that you start off that, you kind of send off the selection pool. If you decide you need to broaden it a little bit, you can always drop that off. But Taylor, is there a reason why you guys put that on there?
We just added it as a preference, mainly because a lot of other job descriptions for this kind of position did say master's preferred. And I think that's a good point to add, Gary, to add that if you do have experience or any sort of education in real estate or architecture, we can add that. These are just lists of the fields that people who fill these positions usually come from, but it would be a good addition to put those in there.
The other reason, excuse me, again, this is parity throughout my department because this person will be a member of my department. The person that we have that fills our senior planner position does have a master's degree in city planning. And that's partly justification for that salary range. So we kind of view that as, hey, if you've got a master's and you've only got 4 years, but if you were hired with a master's, you were hired a little higher up in the food chain and you may be able to hit the ground running further. It's just, it further adds to this blend of what the ideal candidate may be. And Gary, to your point, I have no problem adding construction management, real estate, and architecture as experience points. I have no problem doing that. I'd kind of like to hear from the group before we start making these changes, though.
Anyone else?
Well, I guess I'm still stuck on the earlier comment that Francis made. This is an individual we're hiring for the CRA. It's not part of your specific staff, is the way I'm understanding it. Is this not an individual?
Go ahead.
Is this not an individual that's going to?
Go ahead.
Is this not an individual that's going to work specifically for the CRA, and we need to find the qualifications that are necessary, that they're going to meet our expectations and the needs that we have as a CRA? It wasn't to fill the planning staff. That wasn't the idea.
The enabling legislation for the CRA specifically states that staff will fall under the management and organization of the city staff infrastructure. That's why that's in there. That's why it's there. That's why I'm the planning director and I do that part-time. That's why our city engineer is not a direct CRA employee, worked for the Public Works Department. That's just a caveat that how the CRA was enabled originally. So we're following suit with that.
Whoever we hire is going to have to work in the planning department initially because there's really there's nobody for that person to answer to, until they get here and, custom with the seating and everything that's going on, and then their job position may evolve from that. But initially, they got to work for somebody. It's not going to be the city manager. And so that's where they're parked working for Bill and Bill's office.
That's correct.
That also leads to the other question. You said you anticipate hiring this person by January 1st. When we hired I'm sorry?
31st, but it's all depending response. If we have to set out for a couple of rounds, maybe we'll get flooded with applications in the first month. I hope we do. The
reason why I asked that question, I thought when we hired the Gilmore Group, we hired them initially for 2 months or 3 months. And so at some point, do we need to extend that contract?
We do have the option to do that. And remember when Jim gave his original pitch to get the work, it was that they thought it could be prudent if the CRA and staff felt it was prudent for them to stay on board for a month or two after the hire to help shadow them and establish the lines of communication, because that's what Jim and Taylor do. And I have no problem with that. But right now their contract would expire and it would have to be extended. When is their contract supposed to expire? Taylor, do you know off the top of your head? Is it September
I thought it
31st?
was, I'm sorry?
Is it September 31st or is it
I
October?
thought it was in
31st?
October, but I
It's
could.
October.
So we don't need to do it this meeting. We can do it next meeting, extend their contract. I just want to make sure that all of a sudden Taylor and Jim are gone because we weren't paying attention and the contract expired.
I'm also assuming that means we need to amend the 2020 budget to do so, 'cause we only did the amendments on our last meeting for 2021. For the professional services, when we did the professional services, so when we did the increases in that section of the budget, it wasn't for 2020, it was for 2021.
Well, and as of Thursday, we'll be in 2021.
Oh, you know,
Yeah,
you're right. You're right.
that's
You're right.
October 1st.
Every once in a while.
Yeah, you're right. My brain just wasn't there for a second.
That's okay. That's okay.
All right, so if we don't have to do it today, I'll let you guys look into that and figure out what language you need to put before us to extend that contract.
Yes, sir.
Or do we just bless it today?
Well,
Bill, that's a question for you.
I think I'm getting the intent of the blessing, but I've only heard from two of y'all, so. It needs to be a formal item, and I can't come up with a formal item for this, an action item for this agenda. If nothing else, and y'all do establish that we have a workshop, I can make sure that this is definitely an item on the regular meeting for October. Because the workshop.
Well, let me go ahead and poll the group that we're looking to extend their contract for another 2 more months. Gary, does that work for you?
I guess I have a question. I mean, I don't understand why we're sliding in the schedule. You know, when the schedule was put out by Gilmore, the schedule stated that we would receive the job description on August 4th. Here it is, the end of September, and we're now for the first time seeing the job description. And I don't understand why that's the case. Why we didn't get it on August 4th like it was promised in the note that Jim Gilmore sent out.
Sure, I can speak to the fact that.
Wait. Before you answer that question, Francis, I got to go. You got the gavel.
Okay.
You guys do well.
Hey, Art, before you leave, if we do a workshop, are you available next week? Since we know the 2 weeks out, Gary's not.
Next week, what day? What time? 5 o'clock, I assume?
Is there any day that you're not free? Let's leave it that way.
Can't be Monday because I've got to post the agenda a week before the meeting, and I can't do that ipso facto for today.
So it would have to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Would any of those 3 days work for you?
I am open on Wednesday.
That's the 7th, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
That would be my preference, Wednesday.
Okay, I'm available at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. Yes.
There you go.
All right, so workshop will be Wednesday, but I'll talk to that afterwards when we're done with this point as well. Thank you, Art.
I'm sorry, Francis,
All right,
I'm
Taylor,
sorry, I
I didn't mean to cut
wasn't,
you guys off.
which date are you guys talking about?
Wednesday,
Wednesday,
the 7th.
October 7th. October 7th, 5 p.m.
Would you be free, Gary?
Yeah, I'm available on Wednesday.
I just want to make sure we all were before he disappeared and we couldn't ask him. All right, so back to you, Gary. Go ahead.
Well, I was just asking the question, if we're going to be extending a contract, why are we extending it when we were originally supposed to receive this back on job description was supposed to be delivered on August 20th.
Yeah, before Taylor responds, I'm guessing it has to do with COVID, but why don't we let her respond to that?
Well, the work product got pushed back mainly due to the need to get the virtual training session done. That did take a good amount of our time working with Cliff and Bill. And I think this is the most recent meeting since then that you would have had an opportunity to look at it and approve the job description. We've been working with staff, almost since the beginning of September on really finalizing this document. So I apologize if it did get moved back from the beginning of August, but I know it was our priority to do the training session first.
That is true. I will concur with that. That was a specific request of the board that we have the training sooner rather than later.
Do you have anything else, Gary?
Yeah, but all of that was outlined in the letter that Jim sent. Jim said that the training session's August 12th. The job description August 20th, and then it goes on. Internal communication recommendation August 4th. I haven't seen anything on the internal recommendation for communication.
We do have that document, and we from what I remember, it was an internal discussion looking at the training, the timing that you guys had in the training meeting, because Jim and I did have a section at the bottom of that for internal communications. And we have that document ready. It wasn't on the agenda to be shared today, but we have that document ready to spread out between everyone.
It could be part of the workshop, maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bill, can we have that as part of our workshop as well next week?
Could you tell me again, just the bullet point, what the item is? Internal communications?
Internal communication recommendations, yeah.
I think Gary wants to make sure that we're staying on point, and the contract that we had with them is actually without outside interference, obviously, staying on track so we can decide about the value moving forward. That's how, if I'm putting words in your mouth, Gary, please tell me, but that's how I feel. That's what I think he's asking for, the work.
And we understand that. And I think the other deliverables are an external communication strategy, which will follow the internal one, and then recommendations of potential incentives and an economic toolbox as well, which we have shared with staff that we've been working on.
Okay. Hey,
This will be discussed when we do come up with the vetting of the extension of their contract. That's how we can address those
Taylor,
questions.
will you also include, when the stuff you're going to provide us for our workshop, will you also include what it is we would expect for you to do in the next couple of months once we have someone, like in the process of hiring someone, what we should expect in the next level of service from you, please?
Absolutely.
Gary, are you good?
Yeah, I think so. I just want to make sure we've got all of these items moving along and we're getting them completed in a timely manner. We knew that this job description is important. We've been wanting to get this person on board for 2 years. It's time to get this done and move it on.
Anybody else want to have any more comments about this? Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I got 2 things. First, to confirm one of Gary's points about, on that bullet point, separating out capital and maintenance, because one of the things that I, for one, from the beginning have wanted out of this position is that if we see things or there's things that are noticed in the downtown area, that the CRA person can go to the different departments. If Parks and Recreation isn't doing something right, or we feel they could do a better job of this, that, or the other, or code enforcement, we have some issues potentially with code enforcement, that this person will interact with the agencies that we can't do and address the concerns that we would raise or that are spotted. The second thing, and it relates a little bit to that, is I would like to see, without assuming we're not getting too specific here, but one of the functions is to do regular drive and walkthroughs of both CRAs to identify issues that might be brought to our attention, including maintenance needs, resident inputs, project progress, just to get a hands-on, close view of what's going on in both CRAs.
That will happen factually. I mean, that's just going to be part of their initial training, is just getting on the street and getting to meet the people. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be
but as an ongoing basis, I don't want to have just a single drive-through or walk-through,
right.
but as a periodic basis, inspect the CRAs.
Part of that will be determined after we get the person, though, to see, how they may have different styles. Somebody want to do it every day. Some people may want to do it twice a week with the administrator. Some people may want to do it once with. I understand that's a variable, and that factually that will happen. They're going to be a person on the street. That's why we're getting a full-time person. I just don't know that we need to, you know, delineate it that much in the job description. That's kind of anybody who takes a position is going to do that.
Jeff, may I extend that question out real quick to Bill Mann? I'm assuming we had talked about multiple times about a list of complaints, or like Jeff was saying, items that we would like repaired and taken care of maintenance wise. I'm assuming that you're saying that we're going to tell them we want some system that does that, so they're keeping track of it because that's how they work, versus it actually being part of the job description as a job requirement to be able to do.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I'm understanding. Because I would think that the CRA as a whole would probably direct that we would want a listing of what is being requested and what's being completed. And I think that's what we're getting at. There's got to be some kind of relay to that, but that's more.
And there will be requests.
Jeff?
Yeah, that's better statement.
There will be requests internal from the agency. There will be requests from property owners. We'll get requests from the police department. You're right. They'll have to be put in a highlight.
Because originally this all started with, where is the list and who's keeping track of it? And it's like, oh, the police sent it here, or someone else sent it there, and there's no centralized place. So for us in our districts, we were wanting someone who would take that list and own it. And I think that's what Jeff is getting at. It's like, where is that list? How is this going to be done? So in a way that extends qualifications to organized. I know it's a simple thing, but some people are not organized. They can be super smart, have super great degrees, but if they can't color code worth a darn, then you really aren't ever gonna get what you need. So I'm just gonna say that. So anybody else have any questions in regards to this job description? Okay, I'm going to summarize it, and if I'm missing something, please let me know. And then Taylor, I'm assuming you guys are going to get us a updated version of this. Maybe we can look at that at the workshop as well, so we can get this to vote with the council ASAP. Is that fine?
Mm-hmm.
So is it not your intent to try to get blessings of the revisions we make tonight? I can reach out.
I'd be very happy to do that as well. But I don't know how the group feels, so I'm going to go through this, and they may want to actually see one more time before we get the blessing. Can we get the blessing at the workshop?
I don't know, because as I said, this was intended to kind of ease HR's efforts. There's a new public works job description. It's going through this exact same process. Worst case, we just won't do it with public works, and we'll do it at a separate meeting standalone.
Well, if the board is, or the agency is good to approve these changes now that we're going to go over with, then we would, I'm fine with having a vote tonight. But
I don't think the changes are that major that y'all couldn't do it tonight.
okay. So guys, let me know if I'm on track, if I'm missing anything. So this can be for the permanent record. I'm going to start from the beginning. First paragraph, job summary. We are going to request that they remove infrastructure. So it just says CRA construction. We are going to change the wording to where it says they perform and have direct supervision to the CRA administrator. And we're doing that because Bill Mann is that role, with the intent that it could separate out from planning development later down the line. On page 2.
Before you leave that,
Yeah.
Francis, when you said, take out infrastructure and, just construction, I would say construction projects.
Okay. Anybody else have a problem with that being worded? This position oversees various projects relating to CRA construction projects versus CRA construction. Anyone have a, nope. Okay, so we're going to move that one to CRA construction projects. Then we're also removing director of planning, but just to CRA administrator, but the future intent of it being its own department. On page 2, it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 7th dot down. Interacts with various city departments, including parks, recreation, and public works to ensure capital improvements projects, or how do you guys do that?
Capital and
Just
maintenance projects.
Capital and maintenance projects.
projects, yeah.
Okay. So we're just going to insert and in between capital and maintenance. And then we are going to go to qualifications.
Francis, excuse me, before you move too far, I did have one additional bullet point that I was mentioning that would be advantageous, I think, to have there, and that's to have to be involved in development marketing to potential businesses, something along those lines.
Anybody else object to adding that bullet point?
Phraseology, you could just say market the CRA areas.
That's
Jeff,
fine.
Sam,
Okay.
either one of you have any quorums with that?
That should be the third bullet point from the bottom, right above proficient in Word Outlook.
I would be fine with that positioning. All right, then moving to qualifications, we are going to add experience in real estate, architecture, or construction. And I am still hazy on if we are keeping the master degree preferred. Are we keeping that language?
It's still an option
personally-
because I think it's a way somebody that's got 5 years experience. And again, this goes back to the pay structure and how they're in this pay grade 322. It parallels one of my current staff, and it's a matter of equity. I've got to manage all these.
I personally think we should keep it in there because it's not saying it's required. So I don't want to amend that. I want to have an agreement with everyone else, or at least a vote. If two of them are fine with it, we'll move forward. So Gary, are you okay leaving the master degree preferred?
You know, I think you can leave it in there. The challenge that you're going to have is that if you're going to the typical marketplace for a master's degree for the salary ranges that you're talking about, it doesn't match up with what's happening in the marketplace.
Okay. Well, if you're not opposed to it, keep it in.
Yeah. I mean, that's where my concern is, because I've hired these positions before, and a master's degree takes you into a different realm. And it's, you know, Bill, your experience is more on the urban design and planning and things. Maybe that's true in urban planning and design, but it's not on the program management side for the kind of individual that we're talking about. And again, I've got a number of things I think that should be crossed out or eliminated in that qualifications section. You know, economics, marketing, finance, planning, business administration. Those are areas that don't provide us the capabilities that we're really looking for this position.
So Gary, if I may, having a wider range of degrees doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to find the qualifications, in my personal opinion. I just say that, and I'm not trying to be argumentative. I will say in my own personal business, I found someone who had a degree in marketing, and they are by far the best at what the job is, which is not anywhere near what marketing is or social marketing is. So I do think there's qualifications in other areas. And I think maybe if we narrow it too much, as far as that's concerned, those areas are concerned, it may limit who goes in, especially if we do have the master's degree. So, I'm good either way. I don't know if you guys want to have another look at what they come up with for qualifications, but me personally, the only thing that I would recommend the changes is adding the real estate, architecture, and the construction that we talked about. If anybody else wants to have a bigger discussion about it, please let me know.
I would concur with you, Francis.
Okay, Sam?
Yes, I agree with you. And yes, I think a master's degree, it does not say required, it does say preferred. So I think we need to leave that in there and keep that range in. And I agree with you, yes.
I will say though, Gary, just to play devil's advocate just a little bit, I will say if they cannot find someone that fits this description, that we will probably review it in January if they have not found somebody, and we will dumb this down even more if need be. And I don't mean that in an intellectual way. I mean just making it more pointed to making it more broad for the specific skills we're looking for. Because I'm hoping
I guess what I'd like, what would be interesting to hear from all of the members of the agency is, what is it that you're specifically thinking is needed for this position? Maybe what I'm thinking is totally wrong, but I don't have a clear understanding of what everybody else is thinking at this time. What is it that you're looking for the capabilities of this individual being when they work for the CRA?
I will speak for myself, and then I will open the floor to Jeff and Sam. I will tell you, for me, it is someone who is self-sufficient, who will self-educate. They have to have those experiences and degrees to be a person who will self-educate, which is why I do not mind having the extended education part inside the qualifications. I also think it's somebody who is willing to work through the channels to get to become management. And to do that, sometimes You have to take a step down to go up, but you need that person to be qualified for the higher part job. That's why the qualifications fit for me. Anyone who is in that position needs to be organized and self-directed and self-aware, I guess is the best way to put it. So for me, that's the kind of person who can get things done and take initiative. And you're not going to find that in a lot of people who don't have a lot of these experiences in this qualification, to me personally. That's just me. I think you can take somebody who, let's just say, has an experience of nursing, completely doesn't make any sense for what we're looking for, but that person manages people, that person is very organized and detailed, that person does follow up with multiple doctors and multiple different departments. That person has the qualifications to grow that department into a functioning entity. And that's what I see, and why I'm fine with a broader range of qualifications, because you can find those things in multiple facets of life. That's me personally. Hope that helps. Jeff, you want to go next?
Yeah. Again, my view of this position is it's a liaison from us to all the different departments in the city to get the CRA projects in appearance and done and looking the way we want to. They need to have a basic level of experience and training to be able to know how to talk public works and talk code enforcement and things like that. But we're not looking for a professional designer or anything like that. Again, this is a resource for us to draw everything together and get things coordinated within the CRA. So to your point on the organization, I think that is key: organization and communication. And
Okay,
enough
Sam?
basic knowledge to be able to speak the language.
Right. Sam?
Yes, I'm looking at the public administration and economic and marketing. I think there's more of a construction component to this, but by the same token, I want to leave some latitude in there for the hiring personnel to make a decision and not eliminate some good candidates because they do not meet every bullet point that is on here. So, but the economics and marketing, I don't know, Bill, how much of that is really required in the job? I'm going to have to defer to you on that.
Well, that depends on the direction of the agency going forward. Both of our districts have primarily been involved with infrastructure, the build it and they will come, the field of dreams type of mentality. The infrastructure work is primarily done, so the CRA is positively evolving into doing more proactive development work and development recruiting. So I can see marketing being a part of it. We hired a retail strategies to come up with a market mix for the CRA. Unfortunately, the benefits of their work got some new development outside the CRA, but not necessarily in the downtown district. So having somebody on board with that exposure, we'd still, I would imagine, if we're going to do a full marketing study, it's not going to be conducted by this program manager. They may manage the contract for whoever we would sub out to, because there are people that do market analysis studies, and that's all they do, economic analysis, and that's where our money is better spent. So for them to be exposed to it, yeah, but do they necessarily need to be a marketing manager in a top 20 or Fortune 500 real estate firm? I don't know. I think that's probably overkill. That's a bad example. I'm sorry.
Does that answer your question, Sam?
Yes, it does. And I'm thinking if someone comes in with 7 years of experience, they would have touched on some of the skill sets that we've been discussing. So that's where I am.
Jeff, I see you had your hand up for a second.
Yeah. Again, this paragraph, it's not saying you have to have economics experience or marketing experience. It says if you have a degree in economics, that gets you in the door for us to talk to you.
Correct.
As opposed to maybe a fine arts and sculpture degree.
Right. So I agree with that. So it sounds like in consensus, Gary, that we all want a personable person who has experience and or will learn said language, has no problem speaking their mind to make sure they can be an advocate for the agency and can develop that agency and rapport within the city to separate from Bill's group to create their own group. It's kind of the rapport I'm getting from everybody. I hope that helps. So with that being the case, I think the way we're going to leave the qualifications as is, except we are going to add real estate, agriculture.
Architect.
Thank you, my brain. Architect.
Christmas trees.
Agriculture.
Thank you, my brain went agriculture, but you know what I mean. And construction. Thank you. My words kind of messed up there. So yes, so we're going to add those 3 in there, and everything else is the same. Other than that, there was nothing added or changed on the last page. Is that all the changes that we would like? Gary?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, you're.
Did I miss any, Bill?
No, ma'am, that's what I got to a T. I marked them all down when we were going through the discussion. I think that's it.
Gary, is there anything I missed that you had on your list that we haven't discussed?
No, I'm fine with the rest of it.
Sam?
Fine. I'm okay.
You're good? Jeff?
Yeah.
Good.
All right, so Taylor, that is our, those are our changes. I'm going to do a vote.
Yes, ma'am. It just say approved as amended tonight.
Yep. So I am willing to entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to entertain a motion that we present the job qualifications as amended in an effort to expedite this. Well, the expedition part does not have to be there, but with revisions that are recommended by the CRA.
Okay. Do I have a second? Thank you, Jeff. All right. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Also, can I ask that it be clarified additionally because of the wording? Second.
Clarified as in which way?
The job description. I want to make sure that he's making the motion to approve your recommendations for the job description specifically, not qualifications only.
Okay.
I meant job description as a whole. Thank you. Yeah.
Chandra, just for script purposes, move to present the job description as amended to the city council for inclusion in the city's pay plan.
I concur.
I thought that's what you wanted to say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
And then Jeff, did you second what Bill just said?
Yes.
All right, and roll call vote would be Gary Paytow,
Yes.
Samuel Hall,
Yes.
Jeffrey Jones,
Yes.
and Francis Pawlowski.
Yes,
And Art Graham left the meeting around 6:01.
that's correct.
And Ms. Pawlowski has taken over as chairperson.
That is correct. All right, Taylor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so Bill, was there anything else you wanted to discuss, or can I jump into my last little bit before we break from the meeting tonight?
No, ma'am, I already gave you a description of downtown projects, and as an intro into your workshop, because that's what I was going to ask you is what the topic of the workshop is. But the first thing is to have Jim and Taylor provide us an overview or a review of the internal communications recommendation, and also to outline what would be expected of them if the job is extended, if their contract is extended, to allow them to stay on board for the first several months of the new hire.
Correct. And then if you needed the topic, I'll kind of go over what I wanted to talk to the group. The reason I called for a workshop, and I know I didn't really get you guys' input before we set the date, but I had to do that with Art. So hopefully, I'm hoping you all are on board with this. But regardless, we at least have another topic to discuss. So we have a meeting now. So I went through, and I'm assuming all of you have done your research based off or at least dove into the document provided to us by the Shepherd Group. I've been digging through it, the zoning code, the comprehensive plans, trying to really get a good grasp of it because it didn't quite give me the information I personally thought I would get from it. And I don't know if you guys felt the same way. So I'm really calling a meeting, a workshop meeting for us to kind of wrap our hands around what it is this document is saying and what we can do or cannot do moving forward. And I say that because when I looked at, I've done color coding and I've done so much research on it. It's kind of insane, to be completely honest with you. But after going through it, I am questioning if we should try to move forward with the current plan or if we should just request that the city council create a brand new plan. And I want to give you guys an example as to why I say that. And that way, when you guys look at it for the next week, you can kind of hear where I am, why I'm calling the meeting. Because I have been a big component and an advocate of saying, let's get something done. So after digging through it, as you guys know, just as a little history, you guys know I had to write down some notes because it was just too much to remember. You know, the downtown is zoned as the central business district, the CBD, which is why I was kind of asking you, Bill, about the zoning and what parts of it are no longer underneath that zoning. You guys know that that district is mentioned in the comprehensive plan, and that comprehensive plan gives us the flexibility to develop however we want within inside plan parameters. So there's one part inside that comprehensive plan is policy LU 1.5.10 that states that the area allows for medium to high density residential, commercial, industrial, recreational, and entertainment use, as well as transportation and communication facilities. The exact location, distribution, and density of various types of land used in the redevelopment agency will be guided by the site development plan's approval as downtown redevelopment plan. So that's what we had him review with the color coding that he said he did. So I went through that. In gray meaning it was no longer relevant, and it had different, green was relevant. So I looked through it, and if you look at the property that we actually own, and I'm just giving you guys this information, you can see why I was looking at it and why I'm making it important that we kind of decide which direction we want to go. They had these corridors. So if you use the pure corridor for an example, and you cross-reference all these documents and what he says, it says that that area, the CRA in the pure corridor is to encourage infill residential-based mixed-use development along 4th Avenue North, which makes me wonder how we ended up with a restaurant in the corner that's still not, doesn't have a renter, and how we ended up with a museum if it's supposed to be residential. So there's that. And then if you look at the rest of it, it talks about how the CRA is also responsible in that same corridor to provide a public parking garage to serve the beach and the retail users, the beach, the residents, and the retail area for that district, for that corridor. And if you look at our stuff, we only have that lot next to Ritz and the little staging place and the empty parking lot on 4th. So if you follow that logic and that purview, we have to,
There's one apartment complex. The one apartment complex.
So if you visualize going down 3rd and looking down towards the pier, if you follow what the current plan, and if I'm following it right, the 4th Street where the flat parking lot is now and the police station technically needs to be residential multi-use. And then if you go further down to the next block where we've been talking about purchasing those apartments, or even we should maybe consider the Ritz, which is a whole nother thing when you look at our, I did this little chart with the 500 feet for bars. We're supposed to continue that block to be multi-use residential, but also provide parking for those residential people and beach. So it's kind of like a hodgepodge. So if you're going down 3rd Street, you'll be between the Metropolitan and a big building, 2 different buildings. Is that really what we want? And also, if you're going from 3rd Street to the beach, the pier, it's all gonna be residential and not necessarily commercial unless you can kind of incorporate it. So I say that just for the one corridor. There's a whole bunch in there, and I had to follow all those different places. So in our workshop, what I'd like us to talk about is what exactly do we understand now that we have this, what those corridors will look like, and what could we do? Like Gary, you had this, like, what action items can we do? What can we do to get stuff started? We have to understand what our purview is. So now do we discuss those, or do we say as a group, you know what? This isn't what we think works anymore because there's all these pieces that no longer fit based off this plan because they're either rezoned or something got built in an area that wasn't supposed to be built. And do we say, City Council, we now wash our hands of this plan and we need you and us to sit down and say, this is the new direction? Because if you look at it, we really only have a few lots and the rest of it's owned by the city. And if we're going to try to get some kind of cohesion, we need to have that discussion with them. So I know it's a lot spewing out to you guys. And like I said, I have a lot of documentation, which Bill, I'm going to send to you tomorrow so you can give it to everybody.
Yeah,
So we
I
can
need it sooner rather than later. If we're going to meet next Wednesday, I need it sooner rather than
I'll
later.
give it to you first thing tomorrow. I'm going to go through the whole thing and I'm going to scan it all tomorrow morning and I'll get it to you tomorrow morning so you can get it to everybody as well. But the reason I called the meeting or the workshop is so that we as a group sooner than later can say, this corridor, this is what it means. This corridor, this is what it means. There's 4. What can we do? What does the plan say? And should we move forward with it and get things done? Or should we as a group decide that we may actually need to revamp the whole thing with council? So I'm the first one to say I'm a little disappointed that it's not the villages that I thought it was going to be. I'll leave it at that.
Villages? Did you say villages?
Yeah, the original, because you know, all the stuff from the 1987 thing.
The residential, right.
All those are gone. Things are put in different, like there's places that shouldn't be there that don't even qualify for the zoning. That I don't know how they end up being built in those areas. So that's what I wanted to bring to you guys. I hope that's okay. That's why I called the meeting next week. Yes, Bill.
Would you like the Shepherd firm to participate in the workshop, or do you want to do this void of their input?
I personally think we as a group need to hash out our understanding of it. And then if we come up with questions of, well, this is what we understand, we might just bring a bullet point. This is what we understand your plan says. This is what and what response is back. We don't necessarily need them to participate in the discussion.
Point one. The second point I want to make, though, was at the end of Mr. Shepherd's presentation. That's exactly how he framed it. Is this document sufficient for you to go forward? Do you want to continue with this generally as the vision going forward downtown? Or would you like us to take you or another consulting firm to take the next step and prepare a new plan downtown? That's kind of how he left that.
Well, and after diving into it, I reluctantly am questioning it. Not just because of that one corridor, but also because of the land that we actually own. We need to either be purchasing the land from the city so we can develop it, or we need to be able, or other places, or we need, like, even there's certain areas, like I don't understand some of like Bose, how it's even, but that's beside the point. Or I just think that we're going to put the hodgepodge like we do now, and it's going to become even more hodgepodgey if we don't sit down and say, visually, this is what it says. What does that really mean we can do? And is that something, a capital improvement project we as a CRA want to tackle and can make work? Or is it more of a, you know what, we could do this, but us as a group don't really think that fits the parameters because of all these unqualified properties that are already developed are here. And we need to start fresh with with actual plans that are like an actual updated map of what's there now. Does that make sense, guys? I'm talking too much.
Somewhat.
Jeff?
Can you, this example you gave on the Pure Corridor,
Right.
where were you reading from?
I read the land code. I'm
not, you had some specific language.
So inside the okay, for me to give you that language, you have to understand that we are code as CBD, and the CBD is defined underneath the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan tells us we have lots of flexibility and rights underneath our development plan. Inside the comprehensive plan, it's policy UL 1.5.10. It's called Central Business District. You can look it up underneath the, I can send it to you, but it's also in our website.
On the website.
It's on the website. Called 2030 Comprehensive Plan, but it was started in 2011, if I recall correctly. But that policy, there's 2 of them. There's also UL 1.3-3, but that one's not as wordy. But the first one, that one gives that specific wording, and that's how it gives us the rights to do whatever we really kind of want to within a downtown district plan, and that gave us the rights to do the downtown area.
Right,
So,
but you gave an example of language, residential development along 4th Avenue.
yes, so that is actually in the, I should have wrote that one down. It's a page, it's, okay, so it's in the memo that he gave us,
Okay.
Shepherd's memo. are his big stuff. And if you go to, he kind of summarized it. If you go to the vision plan, page 43 of his color-coded plan language document, because he gave us 3 documents. So his color-coded plan language document, page 43, you will see the different corridors. That actually starts on page 42. It has Gateway Corridor, Civic Corridor, Pier Corridor, and Retail Corridor. Oh, and north-south streets. So it talks about these different corridors. And in there, it basically says in green what's still viable for us to do in that said corridor. And it says on 14, new residential and commercial development can frame either side of the new pier park. That's the actual pier itself. But if you look down at 17, it says encourage infill residential-based mixed-use development along 4th Avenue North. And then it says,
Okay, so that's page 23.
That's page 43.
Well, I'm seeing that on page 23 of mine.
Yeah, 43. Amendments 4, 5, and 7, vision plan amendments.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we just get a listing of the documents that, need to be looked at between now and the meeting so that we can sit down and
I'm gonna give everything that I'm pointing out specifically to Bill in a scanned document, but I won't send the whole documents because we have them. But I will give you a listing of the documents. I'll give you like a storyboard of what I'm pointing at just for this specific corridor. But we're gonna need to talk about everything as a whole. And if it ends up being multiple workshops, that's fine. But I just kind of make sure we're on the same mental capacity or mental page when it comes to, do we move forward or do we ask to replace?
you say we have the documents. I'm assuming, the only way I have the documents is electronically. Is that right, Bill?
I printed them.
You printed them, but I don't have a printed version because they were such big documents. Bill, you were saying they were just going to be distributed electronically. Is that right?
Right.
Bill, you're on mute.
With the exception, I'm sorry, I don't recall. The Shepherd products, did you get paper versions or were y'all given those just electronic?
I think it was just electronic version because it was such a large document that you suggested that that was the best way to distribute it at the time.
If at this point you want the paper documents, I can produce them. I just need to know.
Personally, I would like to get a paper copy of it because we're going to be flipping back and forth and talking about it. And the only way to really do that is if
I thought I printed out everything and I don't have a color-coded page 43.
Really? Oh, I mean, I can pay, Bill, I can also do it at my office if I need to. If you need me to make folders for everybody, I can make folders for everybody if that helps you out as well.
Well, that would immensely. It would immensely. But at the same time, I still need
deliver them. I just don't know how I would deliver them to everybody.
I can deliver them, but more to the point, if it's materials that are distributed to the agency in advance of the workshop, I need to have those materials included with the agenda that I put on the website on Wednesday. So and that will be electronic.
How about I print workbooks just like mine and they're all the same. I'll email what I'm printing for everybody to you tomorrow morning. So you have them. And then I will bring them to you tomorrow by lunch-ish. Okay. And then we can get them out to everybody tomorrow.
And if, in terms of getting the paper product, if you've got a little production lag, that can go out. I just have to have it posted on the website. Anything that's to be contemplated in the workshop or discussed at the workshop needs to be posted with that agenda a week before the meeting. That's
not a problem. My intern will be very happy to help me organize these tomorrow.
Are you back in your office now?
Doing that.
Are you back in your office now?
I will make it happen. Don't worry. I'll figure it out. Okay. So guys, I will print up those 3 documents specifically I was looking at, but I'm going to highlight the areas that for this specific corridor, I didn't do the work for every corridor. I just did this one because the majority of the land that we own right now is on that corridor. Like everywhere else is city owned. Like everywhere else is city owned. We only really own on this one corridor. That's why I focused in on it, and focusing in on that made me realize that this document may not be what we want to go forward with. And if that's the case, and if we have to incorporate city lots and make sure that what they're doing fits with the vision of the plan as a whole, because they're supposed to be going through us, it might be something to discuss as a group. So, Bill, but I'll work on that tomorrow. And guys, thanks for being patient with me. I know I kind of made you guys sit down and do a meeting without knowing why I want to wean, but that's really what I want to boil down to. Jeff, I will get that stuff to you too.
Okay.
But just for your reference, if you do go online and look, the 2 bullet points I quoted, page 43, vision plan amendments 4, 5, and 7, and it's numbers 17 and 18. Those are where I actually quoted from what we could do in the pier corridor.
Yeah, I see that, but it's on page 23, non-color coded of what I'm looking.
So strange, but yeah, that's where it's at. So that's pretty much what I wanted to do. Anybody else have anything else to discuss before we close out the evening?
No, I just want to make a point about the workshop. I like doing a good workshop, but I like to come away with some definite conclusion. I know we talked a lot about what we want to do. That sounds like that's going to be pretty heavy. We may have to do that over several workshops. But yeah, let's have an agenda so we can work through this. Yeah.
One suggestion is that Francis did hone in on the commercial corridor, and it is proximate to CRA and city-owned properties that would be available for P3 partnerships for that type of development. I would suggest, I'm not telling you, but I would suggest that you focus this workshop next Wednesday on that corridor, because the civic corridor, the retail corridor, those are kind of self-evident. We could probably combine 2 of those for a subsequent workshop. I'm not talking about putting all this to next year, but I think that exercise in just now analyzing what they've come up with in the 4th Avenue corridor will go a long ways towards saying, well, how do we want to go forward? Is this enough for us, or do we really need a plan with more teeth?
Which is why I honed in on the 1 corridor.
Yeah, so I think that's a perfect topic.
A lot. So anyway, but Sam, to answer your question, is I have no intention of it being more than 2 hours long. I do, obviously it would be on this kind of platform. I don't know if I have the ability to share a screen with everybody when we're together, or if we'll just all look at our books and just reference pages, since I'll make sure all of us have the same books. It's probably going to work better that way. I don't know what Bill Mann needs to do for requirement purposes. But that would be my intention. My guess is we'll go on, but my intention is, let's talk about what Taylor has to talk about super quick, get it done with, say yay, nay, whatever, and then dive into this no more than an hour, hour and a half, because after that it gets mind-boggling, and I kind of got grumpy with myself, so I don't want to get grumpy with you guys. So no more than that, honestly. Okay.
Probably need to do something similar for the South Beach District too.
I think you're right. I think you're right, especially since we have, but though, Gary, that brings me to point to your spreadsheets. I liked your spreadsheets very much. I might actually want to steal your formatting, if that's okay, because it is much more organized than what my notes were, so I might steal them. But I think the South Beach may not be necessarily in this language. It may be more language of what do we have to do and what are we going to go through, and it's more like,
yes, and I agree with you. It's a little different, but it's in order for us to get we need a plan pulled together so that next year when we look at our budgeting and so forth, we know what we need to move forward with as it relates to consulting fees and things to that extent, along with any construction, and how do we expand that out for a 5-year capital campaign, capital program. There's a number of things that all get tied together, so having the plan is what's really important. And I'm excited really to hear us talking about this and really getting you focused in on it, because it's going to open up a lot of things for us, and it's also hopefully going to provide us some real improvements in both those districts.
I agree. So let's just say that probably this workshop and maybe an overflow workshop will probably be focused on this downtown wording, so we can make sure that we're on the same page, and then we either pass it on to a group discussion with council, or we just move forward with it, one of the two, whatever we as a group decide. And then I would say right after that, we really need to jump on our task list for capital improvements and what we feel about what's a priority to prioritize what we want to do. So I'm 100% on board with that. Hopefully I'll catch up Art, so he'll hear the rest of our conversations. I'm sure he'll be on board as well. Bill, I think that meeting.
Hear this on YouTube.
Huh?
He can hear this on YouTube. It's recorded.
So I think that concludes the meeting, gentlemen, and Taylor, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Anything else?
Right. Bill, just a quick question for you.
Sure.
What's going on in the South Beach District behind Pier 1? I know that we had construction going on along Marsh Landing Parkway on the east side of South Beach, but there's been some construction going on behind Pier 1, and I understood that that was part of a future project, but they had a tractor down there and digging around. I'm not sure what they were doing. So I was just curious if you could fill me in.
Was it up at the end, right behind Pier 1, or was it more back towards the downside of that Stilling Basin? Because they couldn't.
No, it was right behind Pier 1.
Okay, it was probably getting rid of some sediment as a result of that box culvert project. I don't know that level of detail. I don't babysit that project in that level of detail. I can find out from Dennis Dupree though. It was down in the basin. Was the backhoe down in the basin?
Oh yeah, they had they were hauling truckloads of something out of there as well as
probably silt, because there was some buildup of silt as a result of or not silt, probably sand as a result of that project. So it's probably just them finishing up before they get their final punch list. I can find out from Dennis Dupree though.
And Bill, do we have a final year-end report? The annual report, has that ever been published?
I'll start working on that till after Christmas. No, it's not due till March 31st.
No, but we did have we issued one. There was one due on March 31st. Have we issued that one?
Yeah, it should be on the website.
I don't see it anywhere. It's not been.
Yeah, I've never missed an annual. The annual report was prepared. It's prepared annually, but I typically start working on it in January.
Yeah, I know you had said that's what you were doing, and I just it hasn't been distributed to the CRA members.
Oops. I'm going to see if it's online real quick.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll look. If it's not, I'll get you a copy of it. But yeah, it was done. It was submitted because it's submitted to the state. The requirement is a submission to the state.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 2018 annual report's on here.
It may not have gotten posted.
Yeah, I see 2018. I'm looking one more place. Sorry, I know that you guys are like, why am I watching her look this up? But I figured I'd look it up real quick to get the answer.
Hey, Francis, this is Mark. While you're looking that up, can I just say something real quick?
Yes, please.
Yeah, hey, just so you know, this weekend, the bars did go back to 1 o'clock.
They did?
Yeah, till 2 o'clock, yeah.
Throughout the beaches, not just Jacksonville Beach, that was a deliberate discussion between all three beach mayors.
That is correct.
Comprehensive annual financial report, annual budget. 2019 is online, but the link is not working, Bill.
Yeah.
So it's just the link isn't working.
Okay,
So
well, if you want, I'll email y'all a copy of it's
Yeah.
1819 because we're still in 1920. So
Right.
next January is when I'll start working on the 1920 FY that we're sitting in right now that we got 3 days left in. So the report was prepared and it was sent by certified letter to the mayor's office and to the state. So I'll get you a copy of it. If it's not online though?
No, it's online, but the link isn't working.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it might just be a link issue, or it might be a me issue. That's possible. Operator error can happen sometimes.
All right.
Anyway, all right. So I have my marching orders. I will get working on this and get this stuff printed and out to Bill. Hopefully you guys will have these books tomorrow. And then we'll meet up next week. And I appreciate you guys tonight, and I will see you then.
You then.
Thank you all.
Have a good